Hi, everyone, and welcome to Left Unattended, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on what it really means to be neurodivergent in the workplace. And I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and together we're going to explore the stories that often go untold and the experiences, challenges, and wins that shape how we show up at work, whether the systems were ready for us or not. Today, I'd like to introduce Tabitha Kucera. Tabitha Kucera is an elite, fear-free, and low-stress handling certified registered veterinary technician. Wow, that's a mouthful. A veterinary technician specialist in behavior, a certified cat behavior consultant, and a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner. She is the founder of Chirps and Chatter and dog behavior consulting and training, and serves as the animal behavior technician at the Gentle Vet in Ohio. An award-winning educator and international speaker, Tabitha lectures at regional, national, and international conferences. She's a fear-free certified speaker, a fear-free practice certification consultant, and the host of the podcast Tales from a Vet Tech. Welcome, Tabitha. I'm so honored to have you on the podcast, Tabitha. Can you just give us a little rundown of who you are and how you got to where you're at today, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, I'm so stoked to be here. So I have been in vet med and animal welfare for about 15 years. Whole classic, grew up with every animal in the world. I grew up in East Cleveland, so there were a lot of stray animals because of lack of resources and things like that. And my mom is amazing. And although we had very little, we took in everything. So I was raised that way. And then I met a vet tech in my early 20s, and I was already doing a lot of animal welfare work. And I was like, vet techs are amazing. So then I went to school and then fell in love with vet med, worked in general practice for 12 years, but then also found my love of behavior, which has really helped with lovely humans, as well as my mental health, because animals and humans learn the same.
What?
I know. And in that time, I became boarded in behavior. I became a VTS. I'm a certified cat behavior consultant. I'm a KPA CTP. I love learning, but I've actually started my own business called Chirps and Chatter, and I do a lot of severe behavior consulting with animals, because at this point I refer a lot, teamwork, but really severe cases, especially where there's underlying medical components, I see a lot of that, and then which can be challenging. But then I also get to do organizational consulting with shelters and vet clinics and speak and meet amazing people like you, which is wonderful. So that's my story in a very short little.
I love that. I love the unconventional ways that some of us get to vet med. I haven't told many people, but I actually sold health and life insurance to senior citizens prior to becoming into vet med. I completely answered the ad on Craigslist, and it was a Banfield, and it was my first vet job, and that was the start of my story.
No, it's just so funny that all of our stories look so different, which I love, but also to all of my amazing colleagues out there, including veterinarians, but vet techs, you're amazing. Something I say all the time, I think we feel stuck in specific boxes. And I own my own business. I do org consulting. I speak, I write, the endless opportunity. Also set boundaries and don't overwork, but that's a separate, we can't cover everything. There's so many opportunities in this field to improve the lives of humans and animals. And then also I work in the behavior and animal welfare worlds, which are all correlated. So I'm very thankful that I really genuinely love what we do. And I know we were talking about this earlier, but we were talking about how there's that love-hate relationship with vet med, because the highs are super high.
Yeah.
And the lows are really low, but I love it. And I could never do anything else, which I think a lot of us resonate with that.
Yeah. There's not a lot I've taken from my father in this world. But don't get me wrong, we've got an okay relationship. But there's two things in life that he said, but the one that resonates with me right now is he always said, you don't know how bright the light is until you can see how dark the dark is, right? And that has stuck with me, and I never really understood as a kid what that meant. And as I've grown up and my own mental health struggles and life, I think that really resonates with me now as an adult in my 40s than it ever has when I was a kid, when he was trying to tell me and probably trying to explain it didn't I get it.
And it's a beaut. I mean, I totally agree. And I think we're both early 40s friends. 41, let's be kind to ourselves. Even though age doesn't define us, but
that's right.
It's really interesting because as I've gotten older, right, there's just natural, for most, honestly, most people, natural reflection. And that's something I felt thankfully and understood when I was probably in my 20s. Maybe didn't grasp it as well because maybe the lows were lower, the darkness was longer, just to be honest. But now I feel everything very intensely, which is something I mostly love about me. I've grown to love about me. But that means when something makes me sad, I'm very, very sad. But when I'm happy, I'm super, super stoked. So you can't have one without the other, like you said.
I love that. Which kind of leads us into, before we get into like you specifically and your diagnosis and your journey in your diagnosis, but I would love to talk a little bit about language, because we always say that language is meaning and language is power, and it really means something. What I loved about when you filled out the form to be a guest was that you don't like the word neurodiverse or neurodivergent. And I'd love for you to kind of explain that, because I just love when somebody has a stand somewhere and they can really articulate it and explain why. Like, I don't care if you love or hate the word. I want to know what language works for you. And I want to hear your why behind that.
Yeah. So as a behavior person, I think, again, everyone's learning histories and all of that affects how we take in information, which again, kind of leads into why I'm not a huge, I personally don't recognize even though I definitely fall under that label, but it's a label and it's a newer label. And although I do think it's helpful to identify that as maybe other people who think, again, even normal thinking and learning is weird to me because I'm like, we all learn completely different. No one's brain is the same as someone else. So I think with that understanding where I'm like, we're all individuals. We all have different brains. We all have different learning histories, genetics, so many things, how much sleep you're getting. So many things affect the way you think and learn. So I think the label just bothers me a little bit. I rather describe what I'm seeing, and labels can be harmful and misused, although I understand that it serves a function. So for me personally, and I think I hate to call it a buzzword, but I kind of feel like it's somehow fell in that, whether it's a good or bad thing, because again, it's getting people to communicate and talk about it. Because to be fair, there's certain things about how I learned I did not realize you didn't learn that way, right? So that's really fun. But also I'm like, as a behavior person, all my learners, whether I'm talking to an animal or obviously I'm not talking, but communicating with the animal or talking to a human, I adapt my teaching methods to that individual learner. So again, I think neurodivergence is a weird word because one, not a huge label person. Two, all of our brains are different. We all learn and think differently, no matter what diagnosis we have. So that's where I'm like, hey, you think differently than me. You're neurodivergent. And I'm like, but we all, it's just a weird term to me if that makes sense. Cause I know I kind of was all over the place, but we're all beautiful individual that have different learning histories, because even if we learn with a similar style, that may not be the case for me learning math, which is not my favorite, over something else.
Yeah.
So it's complicated because even if you're like, hey, I'm neurodivergent, I learn like this, we all know that's such a broad term. Yes. It still doesn't define how you learn. So I'm just like, why are we using a label to, it's just, because I think it somewhat simplifies it in a way where people mean well, but also it's somewhat saying you learn like this, which is the whole definition is we all learn differently. So, and it can be used to stigmatize, and unfortunately, it serves positive functions, but also I think it can be used negatively. And again, everyone's just throwing that word around which I'm also like, buzzword. We shouldn't be utilizing language that maybe we truly don't understand, even though we've all done it. I mean, I've done it, like not purposely, but like all humans.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to counter your argument, what I like about it is that it's in your face to society that we are different, right? In the sense of the way we process the world, maybe the way we learn, whatever, is different than the norm by societal's construct of how the world is created today, right? So like I'm a big fan of bell curves. You probably heard me say this before. And so I think of this as like a 4-dimensional bell curve with, it's like, you know, like you can just move it around and spatially anyway. And I like to think about it is the bell curve is, you know, the average person who processes information a certain way, and we get to live on the edges.
Right.
Or the outlaws on the edges. So I don't know, to me, I kind of embrace that of like, I get to live out here. I don't want to be the sheep.
And also I think that since it's such a newer term, which is good because we should be progressing, and again, like, is it the case that we're seeing more? No, it's just things are getting appropriately diagnosed. We're talking about it more, which is beautiful. But also, I don't really identify with that word personally.
Sure.
Because it's such a newer term, and I've already, like you mentioned, I love me and I love the way my brain works. But I've also had a lot of growing management tools, support, which I know everyone doesn't have access to those things for various reasons. So I identify as a bipolar person or someone with bipolar. I'm not personally, I'm fine with both. But like, it's funny when I'm lecturing, sometimes people feel so, which I love that they feel so welcome and comfortable. I always joke, like, I look like a safe space, and that's the kindest thing ever. But they'll come up to me and they'll be like, "You're neurodivergent." I was like, "Yes, but that's
not all of who I am."
Well, it's just funny because I think they say it because it's
that
relatable
connection.
and it's very exciting for them after seeing someone lecturing. It's because I am if we were to use labels and again, define symptoms, and which is so broad to me, but I recognize that I just exude if we had to use labels and stereotypes, and I'm okay with that. But it's also interesting. But also it bums me out because I'm like, am I the first person to lecture in a way that you could be like alert? Like, I've had a lot of people say, you're the first person that I'm awake, I'm focused, I'm engaged the whole time. And then I feel I'm honored that they are reinforcing me and sharing that with me. But also it bums me out because, you know. Yeah. But like you said, there's not one learning style, and also outside of societal's norms. What is normal? See, we can go down crazy fun rabbit holes over drinks, if you will.
Yes,
at conferences. Because I think you could go down, because to me, even when I'm talking to clients about behavior, I'll say, "Oh, it's normal behavior for your cat or dog to explore my training bag," because immediately the client will commonly say, "Don't." And I'm like, "No, this is beautiful. They're exploring a novel item," because I want to let the caregiver know. But obviously there's no normal. And I literally unpack that because I want to stop using that word. But that's complex.
It's so complex, right? Like we don't have terminology to differentiate like average. It's not average. It's not normal. There's somewhere in between. There's no verbiage for that. And it's really hard to.
And labels exist for a reason. Like, they can be harmful, but also they serve a purpose. Like, when I'm describing behavior in vet med, like, I lecture a lot about how we shouldn't be using words like fractious, or that's one that gets me. Or, you know, mean, like, we should be describing the behavior we see, because labels can be really harmful. Yes. They don't identify the cause. They create narratives. You know, there's a lot of, and I see that affect animals' lives and humans' lives, and the way we interact with the animal, even if we don't realize we're doing it. But again, labels do serve a purpose. Like, I say, you know, neurodivergent. I've used that term before because I have to get hip with the times. I sound like an older person. Oh my gosh. When you turn 40, hey, it's so funny. I joked with my partner yesterday. I was like, do I sound like and And I'm like, this is life experience. Let's not call it old. We just have life experience, and I love it. Let's go with that.
I always joked, like, growing up, I was like, at what point do old people stop listening to, like, young people's music? I found it. It was very late 30s, early 40s. That's it. I stopped listening to younger people music. I can semi-appreciate some of it, but, like, I get it. I get it now.
I do listen to a lot of what classic nostalgia, which is normal, right? Especially at our ages right now. Like, we're a lot of reflection, growing nostalgia. But going to shows and music is a very, very, very big part of my life. So I'm making a point I had to actively make a point, though. So it wasn't just a natural thing where I'm like, oh, I'm going to check out this local hardcore band. Or thankfully, since I go to so many shows, I'm also exposed to this new hardcore band or punk band opening for that. So thankfully, I've gotten a little bit better. But yeah, I do have that rotation that I just listened
I think
to.
I got trapped into 90s alternative rock. I'm stuck there. I can't stop myself.
It's so good, though.
It is.
But then again, one of those neurodivergent symptoms, which I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But I like to watch the exact same show over and over. And I've watched the whole New Girl series probably 10 times in the last few months. Usually I don't rewatch things that much, but also there's a lot of factors affecting many of us right now.
Yeah.
That is causing increased stress. So I'm aware that many people's thresholds are over threshold just living in America right now for multiple reasons, along with life, Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I always watch the same things, but I'm really going to watch the same. I listen to my favorite band more. Like, I did like a 7-hour trail race, listen to the same band the whole time. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just embrace what I dig.
So interesting neuroscience coming out. I started reading some of the preliminary research, and they were saying that you can use music as medicine for your brain, because what you tend to listen to and play on, like, repeat and over and over and over and over until it's like, oh, I'm done with that song, right? Like, you ever gotten that where it's like, I will listen to it for like a month straight, just repeat. And then all of a sudden it's like, it doesn't do it for me anymore. And I find and I used to think that was the novelty of the music. And there's research to show now that it's actually some sort of, so frequencies or whatever it is, it's your brain's need to alter its own chemical soup, as a friend of mine calls it, chemical soup in your brain.
Love it.
And so that particular song that you're playing over and over gave you the chemicals it was lacking in that moment. And then that's why it no longer suits you, is because the balance is restored, or maybe it's altered
and it's really
It's so interesting.
And I don't know if it's because music is such a big part. I think, well, it's interesting because it's not a big part. To me, I'm like, it's a big part of everyone's life. And I'm like, wait, it's not, which is very strange to me. Yes. But we all deal with things differently and have different things. But it's funny that you say that, because I'm aware of what my brain needs, which, like, for example, corn is one of my absolute, like, I have a problem. I don't listen to much new metal anymore, but I listen to a lot of hardcore. But when I was 13, like, no joke, that band got me through life. Like, it got me through high school. I'm alive. I'm going to get deep. I am alive because of that band. Because I had, depression and lots of other issues. And it is something, like, my partner knows, like, we're in the car today. I know you're driving. Hey, friends, we're going to listen. I need to hear this song, or, like, I'm going to listen to this record. So I've been listening, because, again, I also like lots of other music, but Korn is like my safe space, which sounds, but I'm so thankful, because I didn't used to have these tools. I truly know my safe spaces. Like, when you're severely stressed, Tabitha, and you're recognizing it, get your ass to the park right now. You're going to find time, even if it's 20 minutes in between work, and you're going to go to the park that you could walk to. Like, fresh air, specific songs at specific times, since music is one of my things. Like, I struggle, like, no joke, but I'm really thankful that I literally know what, at least, it doesn't make everything better, because that's not reality, but, like, manages my anxiety. Like, yesterday I was really anxious because of the world. Personally, just, I'm struggling. I care a lot about people. Not that everyone doesn't, but
I hear you.
I went out with a friend, And because that's another thing, connection to me is, I mean, talking to people at a gas station. And no, I don't just tell people, hi, let's talk. But I'll be honest, I'm like one of the most extroverted people in the world.
You're super extroverted.
I went to 2 stores before my friend met me, and I had 30-minute conversations with 2 random people. And I love that. I think that's
phenomenal.
And I felt better after, I was like, we talked about 2 of the stores had food banks present, like they created, and I was just like, I needed this. And we also talked about how it's normal to think everything sucks right now.
Yeah.
So and these are 2 strangers that I just, now I introduced myself. Now we know each other. But those types of things, I'm thankful that I'm aware of what. So one tip, even though it's not as simple as it sounds, find out what you dig. Because I knew I loved nature. I knew music was a big part. Thankfully, music never really went away. But like I stopped hiking and all of that for a very long time. And growing up in my early 20s, which we're all struggling with normal hormone changes and blah, blah, blah. Nature was like life. And I took like a huge break from that. And I'm like, bummer. I could have used that tool.
Yeah.
Because most of us have access to some park or some, which is another reason I love metro parks. They're very accessible and available for all. Even when I was in East Cleveland, we had access to, those spaces. So that's another thing that I think really resonated with me.
One of the things I love, like externally looking at you all the time, is that you're really, really authentically you. And I think you have found that. And it sounds like you've had the support to be able to hold and support you finding you and finding out what your core needs are. Because oftentimes I talk to the clients I work with, and that's what we have to rediscover who they are all over again. And I love that you kind of like, I just figured out what I needed. And you had that, I think you said you had a lot of family support. Tell me like how were you able, or what supports did you have growing up or now to be able to continue to hold and support that for yourself?
So it took a minute, right? And again, part of that is progress is not perfection, right?
Yeah.
Progress is something we say in behavior all the time.
Yes.
So growing up, my mom and my siblings they are still great. And I've always had a core extrovert is my baseline. Like I'm still like, if you met me in middle school or high school, yes, I've grown thankfully for the good, but I'm still, you would be like, Tabitha, dude, like you're Tabitha, I'm still that person at my core. So thankfully, growing up, it was more challenging just because mental health was a whole thing. I wasn't diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which did affect me. I just adapted. The cool thing is I've made my brain, because all of our brains are different again, but I made my brain work for me. Like younger me struggled more, but in my 20s, I was like, dude, I love your you could do 5 lectures, 3 consults, write 2 articles in one day, girl. Like that's sick.
Yeah.
But those down parts, I did not have appropriate management for, and I didn't even identify them as part of my bipolar disorder. I was just like, which to be fair in vet med, many of us experience this. I just thought I was like severely exhausted.
Yeah.
I kept saying exhaustion. And now looking back, I'm like, girl, you didn't text people back. For you, again, what's your baseline? For me, I'm like, bitch, you were not exhausted. Like that was beyond exhaustion. Like you were in a down part. Like my highs were management. Like my brain, I've just regulated that, because I never had like mania, which again, everyone's where I'm like up at 3 a.m., blah, 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 doing things that may be harmful to me. Thankfully, I've always been aware of what's going on, and I have high energy as anyone who knows me. As a speaker, my baseline is, there's a reason they put me on after lunch. I'm always on after lunch at a conference or first thing in the morning, and I'm like, what's up, and I take it as a compliment.
Yeah. Play to the strengths.
So I've made the highs like work for me.
Love it.
and a long time ago. But again, until I got an appropriate diagnosis, which is more recently, I also had to deal with the downs, which I found management tools for those as well. But now I hardly have those severe downs, which is, I'm like, bummer, I could have avoided that earlier. But I've always had an amazing, even growing up, like, even though I hated my mom when I was 15, like every other teenager, she's the best. I always apologize. I was a dick. I'm so sorry, Mom. The angstiest of angsty teenager ever. But I always had so much support throughout my whole life, even at challenging times with like relationships, whether it's friendships or, you know, other types of relationships. I've always had support throughout that. And then as far as mental health support, you know, it's funny, I'm a huge mental health advocate. If anyone knows me. Oh yeah, I have a Not One More Fat hoodie on.
Look at that.
So I'm a huge, like, obviously I speak about behavior, which is huge, but I talk about severe mental health, like reality for humans and animals when I'm lecturing and stuff. And I actually didn't reach out because I have a therapist now, but I didn't reach out to create that relationship for a long time because my experience with mental health professionals growing up was very negative, like super aversive. And now that I'm older and know more, I'm like, it's still aversive. Like, it actually makes me angry now that I'm aware of stuff where I'm like, how did they legally? It's not like you reflect and you're like, I was 15 and angry. I was like, no, they were inappropriate and their drug protocols were inappropriate. Like, because I know a lot about all of that stuff now. And I'm just like,
yeah,
I was in the right to not like them. I was a smart teenager. I was angsty. But another thing is my mom raised me to stand up for myself, which a lot of people may not have those experiences. So I've always been that girl where I'm like, yes, I'm a people pleaser and I genuinely care about people on another level. It's gross. Like sometimes I'm like, that person hurt me and I'm going to keep trying to be their friend. Yeah, that stuff. But yeah, long answer. But
it's great.
Fun
I
thing
just love
about
it.
me.
I mean, hopefully we all get there at some point, but it's just something I see a lot of, like what I did not recognize going into this work was really having to find identity in my clients. And like, so this sounds really crummy coming out, but the more successful or less affected by their diagnosis is people who I've seen who have really connected with who they truly are on the inside and stand in their values and really like just know how they work and why they work and unapologetically be that way. So yeah,
I've really had very lucky, always have had a support, like every age, always have had a core group of friends, make friends everywhere I go. Like, you know, I'm very thankful for that. And obviously as you age and lots of other things, like I am genuinely, I love myself. I love the icky parts. That's
what I love about you. Like that's what like draws, I think probably for me, it like what draws people into you is that authenticity is just there.
And I used to hide it a bit, not because also as humans, as a kind human, just honestly, you're going to adapt your behavior to specific people. Like I understand some people have to mask on another level and use that term. For me, I'm assessing, because I am a people pleaser, I'm assessing body language in it, but also I've gotten a lot better at teaching. Even when I'm lecturing, I adapt my analogies in that moment based on the body language feedback I'm getting from the audience. Like, so I think that that's a big part of it too, where we're each different, and I don't think it's a bad thing, and we have to adapt our behavior in a specific way. Just like I always joke about this with clients. I'm like, yes, or like people in animal welfare or vet techs, right? Yes, you love that cat or you love that dog, but this is not your cat or dog. because I noticed that people tend to, I'm going to interact with this pet. I'm going to pet them similar to my cat. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, my partner, I'm in a monogamous relationship. He can make out with me. I say this when I lecture, it makes everyone laugh. But I'm like, if one of you made out with me, although you're all beautiful, that would be inappropriate. Relationships matter, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
There's certain things I should not be doing at work. Like, obviously I work for myself. Hooray. But when I was in GP, like, there are behavioral adaptations that we should all be doing.
Yes. Yeah.
But I used to definitely downplay myself a little bit, especially more so in my lecturing career when I first started. I wore long jackets to cover my tattoos. It grosses me out now. And now I wear my mini skirts and my adorable,
yes.
I wear stockings. Okay. But I am really have leaned in, but I used to kind of be a little, again, even my low energy is still insanely high energy for if we're like judging, generalizing. Mm-hmm. So I would tone it down a bit. And then again, I would kind of like not be as vibrant, I guess I would say. And then I started getting reinforced repeatedly where people were like, after the lecture or whatever, the consultation, they were like, we really resonate with you. We want to do behavior now, which I love so much. All of this, like I leave them like inspired and feeling good. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should be myself more. So to be fair, I had a lot of reinforcement from the people around me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, what's up? I'm 41. I'm bipolar as hell. I'm beautiful. Like I feel myself. I mean, like yesterday was a bad day and that has nothing to do with me being bipolar. I was really stressed. I had one of my family members is going through something and I want to hurt the person that hurt, which is not appropriate. I'm just feeling my feelings. Okay, everybody. But I'm aware of context. Like we're all over threshold because of the state of the world. Most of us, right? Plus I'm worried about my family member. Plus, like I'm aware. Plus it's freaking time change. I'm in Ohio. It's freaking cold. Like it's normal to have days, like you said, that we all have bad days and that's normal. And today was better. I do always say that corny thing. I don't like affirmations. Language matters. I don't like that word. Ugh. I call them pep talks, which is the same thing. But I always say to myself, tomorrow will be better. Yeah. So those kinds of things really help me.
It's so funny. I love that you say that because affirmations, if you had told me about affirmations just like 2 years ago, I'd be like, right? I love a good inspirational quote, but I would just never be like, I'm going to talk to myself about how wonderful you are. Like I would just never do that. But since starting my coaching career, like it has drastically changed my world. And I see it drastically change clients. We have to find a way where we're not so turned off by it, right? So we have to call it.
That's where I think whenever you want to, because like,
that's why language matters.
Language matters because it's the same.
Yes.
Pep talks are the same. I just call them pep talks. Like when I'm running, I'm like, bitch, you got this. Like that's another thing that I say to myself, right?
It's very you.
Sometimes people say I'm very spiritual and they mean it in a very they mean it in such an amazingly kind way. Because I do, again, but how are we defining spiritual? Because I always let them know, like, that is so kind of you. I actually find that word a bit aversive because I associate it. Teach their own, everyone. This is my experience. I associate it with religion, and I have some issues with organized religion and things like that. So but they mean it not like, it's interesting. So I'm always like, oh, thank you so much.
I love what you said though. It's like, just tell me what that means to you, right? Like give me the triggering word for me and like, tell me what that means. Right? Makes it less triggering for me. And then we get to connect rather than,
right. Because they're coming from a beautiful place. Yes. And obviously if we were defining spirit, to me, going to a show and screaming with 100 kids and like jumping off stage, like, that is a spiritual, if we were to, I don't use that word to describe things, but that's what many of us, spiritual looks different for all of us. Yeah. And also, if religion is a positive thing for you, and heck yeah, man, Like, that's your spiritual. To me, running in nature, connecting with 150 kids, sweating, dancing, punching, mosh pit stuff.
I was just going to say mosh pit. I was like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it.
Well, I want people to have context. To me, like, it's hard. It's like endurance running.
Yeah.
Like, I have, when some horrible world things have happened, I'm like, I'm going to run, and I run hard, and I run for a long time, and I cry, and it's awesome. Like, and I listen to music and scream. I don't scream like I'm getting, because I'm aware of other people in the. See, this is what I'm saying. One thing about me that's interesting that I need to work on is I always want to explain everything, because I don't want anyone to misinterpret what I'm saying, which actually is a good thing, I think, but also.
That hypervigilance is a trauma response that all of us have, right? I know. This conversation with in a previous episode with a psychotherapist gone coach. It's everyone, and I'm making an absolute statement right here, and I realize that people don't like that, but I'm going to make my first absolute statement. Everyone who has neurodivergence, whatever that language may be for you, has some sort of trauma. It may not be complex trauma. It may not be very big trauma compared to other people. We all have trauma, right? And I often see it in my clients, there's a hypervigilance for something, right? We're looking at constant body language. We're looking at constant, checking out the room, making sure that everyone understands the minimum context. For you, that minimum context, I need to make sure everybody understands, right? Rather than just being who you are and being okay with it. Because there's people in the world that just look at our world. People just talk and have no care on the impact of their words, right?
But to me,
it's so.
I think the behavior person in me, I think because of my education and experiences with becoming boarded and also like seeing a therapist, I can reflect that in a more concise way, because I think I've always done it, but it's a lot like how I simply did like 3 words after what I said and then we moved on. Yeah. So I think that education and experience has made me a lot more, again, just like efficient and fluid with my communication. But I also I think also because I work in vet med and behavior, and I recognize the harm of labels and how humans and animals are suffering. I'm so fun. Due to those things, I also am like, I think that background also makes me hypervigilant too. Because fun fact, we're re-recording this podcast. No shame.
No shame at all.
The first one, I was like, hey, boo, I'm going to be honest. Can we... Because I was worried people were going to, even though I'm sharing my experience, and I shared in what we were talking about I use that terminology because I'm only can speak for me, but I was still like, people may misinterpret it, and I don't want, because also I'm very aware. Yes, part of it's people pleasing, but more of it is I want you to understand what I'm actually mean.
Yeah.
It's not that I want you to think something. I want you to understand what I mean. There's reasons I don't post certain, and my posts from a business standpoint, I put so much work into those because I'm so aware of the horrors of vet med and behavior and pop psychology on the internet. Like, I'm so aware of the horror. The horror is the correct term.
Yeah.
So I'm hyper vigilant because I just want I want to set up people for success.
Yeah.
To take in this information, but also I don't want you to misunderstand what I mean and have it hurt you, or how can I communicate more? Because we all can be better. Like, at some point, right? I'm like, I could have communicated that more effectively. And as a teacher, I've gotten a lot better. But obviously, when you're over threshold and talking to a friend, I've said things that aren't great because I'm a human. 100%. But I'm aware of that. I'm trying to be better.
Yeah. I had a colleague when I worked at a corporation for a very short time. I had a colleague in HR. Hi, Jen. If you know who you are, you know who you are. She said, I said something. She was creating the performance review system, brand new, this whole new project. And I said to her, I was like, I'm really worried about this piece right here and how it can be weaponized against someone.
Weaponized. That's a beautiful word. Yes.
Because it was something of the fact, like, there was this need to grow people. And I was like, I think it is okay for people to be okay in where they want to be and sit still in that role, in that part of their career, and not want to progress as long as they're doing a great job in what they're doing, right? I don't want to push people to grow for growth's sake, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the performance parts were like, how did they progress year over year? And it's like, well, I think that could be weaponized against somebody who's a rock star and is solid and loves being a CSR and doesn't want to do anything but their job because they're freaking good at it, right? Anyway, there's too much context here in what I'm sharing. But what she said to me was, listen, you can weaponize anything. It's all about the person who's wielding it. And I was just like, it really struck me. And I've held on to that now for probably 5 years now. And it's like, everything in life can be weaponized. So just look at the world right now. It's just a matter of who the person is wielding it. And if you can look at the person wielding it and say, I trust them and they're a good person, it invites me to be curious about, what did you mean by that? Rather
relationships
than immediately
and contact
being triggered.
Matter. Like,
yes,
so much. And again, it's all behavior. Context is so important, and relationships, and how do I know you? And also, how am I communicating? Am I communicating effectively, or am I just screaming? Which sometimes is effective. But also I know if you're over threshold, you can't communicate effectively. So for example, I might get angry at a friend and we're fighting because fights can be normal, but I'm also aware that, like, you were over threshold, girl. You do not need to write this email right now. Like, things like that, where, especially from a professional standpoint, like, that's a bit different, where I'm like, I'm over threshold right now, or we're over threshold because something happened at our clinic that wasn't any of our, like, no one's like at fault, but this is heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And we can't just ignore it. We should just have a quick, even if it's like a 3-minute check-in at the end of the day, right? Like, you want to address that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's so good. I don't know why. This completely reminds me of a scenario in practice. So I still get to play. I like to say I play in practice as a vet assistant.
I love it.
And I go 1 or 2 times a month, and I haven't been there for a little while. Anyway, but I remember this scenario where she's a newer vet assistant. She's probably been there maybe 6 months or so. And she gets so upset that this client is like refusing treatment for a newly diagnosed diabetic dog, and they wanted to euthanize. And she got so upset. How dare they could treat this dog? And I was like, it was like this moment of reflection where I was like, I was that person that I got high and mighty on my soapbox, and how dare they? And I think what reminded me is like, how can we bring in that resilience and create different thresholds for people around us, especially when we're in leadership positions? Like, she's now got this lower threshold and tolerance for clients not willing to be compliant, when really, if they can't give an injection of insulin every day, that was the treatment at the time, then that pet's going to suffer. And I would much rather prevent the suffering than have this dog go through diabetic, ketoacidosis and da.
Right.
And so
it's complicated. And that's where
complicated. The ethics and the medicine are complicated. Like, I'd love to be able to like take people and really talk about those scenarios and to your point, that threshold, and change their threshold, and from being really upset about compliance as their like go-to to getting like, okay, what am I missing here?
It's funny. I don't use the word compliant anymore.
Ooh, tell me.
So as a younger tech, because again, we call it practicing vet med. I say this all the time, but it's something I love about our field, because literally you should be improving and practicing. Like, we are growing. It's like this beautiful thing. And I'm also aware of my experience. I'm aware that I am very lucky that I consult with this shelter and this vet clinic, and I consult with hundreds of vets and have all these like wide experiences, but then I'm also in caregivers' homes getting maybe more in-depth histories and because of the job, right? And now looking back, because also so many things affect that, but I used to say clients weren't compliant all the time. And now I'm like, I need to understand the function. There's function to behavior. Always ask WTF, right? What's the function?
I love that.
And now that I have more experience and with a variety of all the worlds, I'm like, that client, like for example, a cat had a dental. This is a common thing. A cat had a dental with extractions. Pain meds were sent home appropriately as they should be because holy ow. And the caregiver doesn't give them, but you don't find out until the 2-week follow-up and your heart is like shattered. Like, don't get me wrong. I feel the shattered part.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh, that caregiver, one, doesn't understand or know how to give the meds. And maybe we showed them this whole like, you scruff the cat, which I never would do, but we are not set up for success with how we're taught to handle animals. But like, scruff the cat, shove a pill down their throat. And I'm like, now I know from even a teaching standpoint, what the heck? No wonder they were.
Yeah.
So one, that client probably had, it's very likely that that client had issues medicating or had, you know, an aversion to medicating because in the past it was so traumatic for both them and their cat or dog. And I didn't address that. So now instead of saying, can you medicate your animal? Yes, they can. Can they sit on their dog and get it done? And it's not because they're malicious. It's because my dog needs these meds. So instead, let's ask, what does giving medication look like? And then I could help with like because behavior, cooperative care, that's my jam. I could help with a minute conversation, or the client wasn't giving it because their interpretation of pain is very different than mine. I mean, my chronic pain identification is so much better than it was even 10 years ago because it's all body language and behavior.
Yeah.
Because acute pain, I think, is a little, just to be fair, it's easier in humans and animals. Chronic pain is a lot more challenging to appropriately diagnose with humans and animals. And the clients, like, they were, that word, ooh, I hate that word. I dislike that word. I'm trying to not use the word hate as much.
We're learning a lot about language today.
Oh, sorry. I'm
I love
extra about it. But they are like, the cat was resting. Like, there's a reason why tramadol was prescribed post-op for pretty severe surgeries where pain, it wasn't appropriate because the caregiver misinterpreted sleeping as not painful. You know, like, so a big part of my job is my caregivers know what pain looks like. Like, I probably am hyper. My caregivers know what pain looks like. Yeah. And also, if we're prescribing a pain med, like for chronic pain, if you didn't identify a baseline and share that baseline with the caregiver, how in the heck? Yeah.
What I really love is the perspective shift. And it was really subtle. And I wish I could remember the exact words you used. But it was like you're looking at the client, and instead of saying like, why didn't you give the meds or whatever it was, it's like, how did the system fail her, right? So it was a systems problem rather than a personal problem, right? And so this goes back to the whole premise of what I like to talk about is like treating a human being like a human being. It doesn't matter their neurotype. It doesn't matter their background, their sex, their gender, their nationality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we just need to treat a human being like a human being.
And there's so much that first off, that we can't control. And being a technician in GP for so long, because our jobs are hard, it sucks. Like, I have friends who are human nurses. My sister is a physical therapist, and holy moly, is the system not set up for them to succeed. But like, it's okay because it hurts. Like, it's hard. We're all put into severely challenging situations. And for example, finances play a part, right? Or even access to care, I mean, plays a part. But also something I recognized a few years, like when I was like probably late 20s, everyone also has different learning histories before I even learned all about behavior, but different learning histories and backgrounds in what an animal is, which I know this is like deep, but there's cultural changes. There are background learning history. Like I grew up, obviously, you know, and because I remember we were in a staff meeting. It was like one of those epiphany moments. We were in a staff meeting and there was a client who came in who it was based on the evidence. She was a hoarder, like a pretty, and there was, and I've dealt with hoarding because I work in animal welfare. I've worked hoarding cases where animals were passed and I mean, they're traumatic and challenging. And we were talking about at the staff meeting, which is actually really great that we were talking because we started to identify signs and we're like, okay, we have to do, because obviously we were in her house, like we saw 2 of her cats and we were like, what can we do? Like, how can we help the animals and the human? And she's a very nice person, but she said some very angry, strong words about said person. And I said, I'm vegan. Okay. I know I told you, haha, of course, the fact that I didn't say it in the first minute. I love that joke. I think it's great. But it reminded me of, right after tech school, I interned at a place called Farm Sanctuary, which is a very large, well-known sanctuary in New York. And then I ended up getting a job there, which was amazing. But part of the internship included going to slaughter / like auction house. And this was early 20s, Tabitha, and we're all appropriately more angry. That's normal, everybody.
Yeah.
But they straight up said to us, understandably, like young Tabitha was like, they're like, dude, you can't scream and yell at people. Like, you can't.
What?
And I still
you can if you live in New York, by the way. I live there. You could totally yell back at your clients.
It was Watkins Glen. It's a different place. We had no stores anywhere. But like, I still, I mean, this was in my, obviously we're always learning, but like, I have vivid memories of this calf just, man, being like beaten and auction off like $10, and they're just, he's terrified. He's being whipped repeatedly. But the part that was, there were bleachers and they were selling popcorn and hot dogs and
oh wow.
And at the time, even young Tabitha was like, I think that was a good, it was obviously, I'm still left up by it. Like, it still hurts my heart. But I recognize like, hey, this is like, these people aren't all bad that are here with their kids eating popcorn. This is normalized for them. And I know that's a weird, but culturally,
true.
You know, so in that moment, I was like, hey, because I stood up, because I understood why everyone was angry, but I was also like, hey, and again, I actually have experience working with hoarders and so that's another thing. And I was like, I hear you. This sucks. This is frustrating. This is hard, but this person is in a blankety blank. I'm like, everyone has a different viewpoint of what animals, because I'm like, I'm vegan, and I'm not like shaming or judging anyone, but you have to realize like my perception of what an animal is different than yours, but you aren't a horrible person. You know what I'm saying? Like
100%. Yeah.
I'm getting really deep, but like that was a very like, and also for hoarders, trust me, it is, whoa, there are challenging situations, but we know that it's a chronic issue. Yet and I've worked with these people. There are so few mental health resources for hoarders. I do not understand why. We are very aware. They just travel across to a different city and do it again. But that's not because, again, we've identified the function of the behavior mostly, but there are zero resources to help them. Ugh. So it's weird, right? Oh, anyways, it's just, it's complex. And again,
the human brain is so complex. Just like,
and also all of these different things, like, because something another pep talk of mine, which I say a lot more right now than I did maybe 5 years ago, and I don't always feel it because I'm a human being and that's okay. Like, these are things I also talk to myself, but I'm like, most people are good. And that is something I have told myself repeatedly, to the point where I've like, I know it sounds weird, but I've like retrained my brain. Because I also get like cynicism. Like, I've seen horrible stuff, man, like frequently. And it's really easy to focus. And also our brains are meant to focus on those more from a survival standpoint, silly brains. So like, it's
so tribal.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent, which is also a fun thing I love to do.
That goes with my ADHD squirrel brain. Don't worry. I follow the rabbit hole. It's fine.
No, most people can keep up. Because when I lecture, obviously I'm more structured, but I'm also very unscripted. Like, there is no scripts. Which is one positive.
I can't script it. I had tried really hard. I did one time, and I scripted my talk, and it was a virtual talk, and it was absolutely god awful. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll write down what I want to say, and then I just fly by the seat of my pants. And I know the content. I just know the content.
And that's one thing that's great. Like, one of the things I often receive is like, she knows her shit, and they mean it in a very kind way, because they're like, she did not look at her slides at all. She was walking throughout the audience throughout. Like, you know, so.
I have to look at my slides. I'm like, where am I?
Yeah, I was like, they're good, like, pointers.
Yes.
And then also, sometimes I'll skip a few slides.
Yep.
Based on, we were talking about this earlier, like, you know, I'm going to focus more on this because it was obvious that people had more questions about this. So I'm going to focus on this handling technique and the whys more. Yeah. Because there's also only so much I can cover in that. And you get better and better at it. But I lean into I control my tangents. But also, if I get off topic, if I'm like, which I'm always on topic because behavior is so big. But if I'm like, oh, what was that word? Because sometimes the other day I lectured like 14 hours or something.
Whew.
And by hour like 7, I was like, what's that word, everybody? Oh, you all know what I mean. And then like someone says it, I'm like, you got it. Because I'm a human and it's normal to forget a word. And no one's ever like, Tabitha's stupid. Like, you know, so even like leaning into being a human when I'm lecturing and not overthink. Now, do I overthink it when I'm done?
Oh, 100%.
Heck to the yes. I'm like, that was horrible. That was horrible. I hate myself. But I also recognize now that 5 to 10 minutes after a lecture, once you're done answering questions and doing it, Tabitha, you're going to feel like you absolutely suck. You don't.
Yep.
But I've learned my patterns. Like, identify your patterns.
Yes. And identify your patterns and your rhythm. Like, that's a huge thing that I loved. Thank you for saying that. I would love to end this with, this is my favorite question to ask everyone on the podcast. And it is, what would you want the world to know about your flavor of neurodivergence? And I know, despite the fact that we may not like that word today.
I know. I think it's super corny to say be yourself and everyone's different. But I think people like to say that. But no one's like walking the walk. So but also I know in some circumstances, context, where it's unsafe to be who you are, which is a whole separate thing. But I think find what works for you. And like you said, identify. I used to only identify as, and hell yeah, I identify as a vet tech. I'm not going to lie to you, but it used to be my only identification. And that's where you get, it's dangerous. It's just not healthy. So find the things that make you happy. It's super corny. Find your outlets, find your patterns, keep data. Like I keep data because I'm a behavior nerd. That's how I got an appropriate diagnosis. And also how I recognized that I need more enrichment. Because I was like, oh, girl, your enrichment is reading books and working. What? Like textbooks. And I'm like, and that's when I found a trainer. I started small, and now I'm like, I have all these healthy outlets. So I think genuinely being yourself, find your outs, the things that you need, your outlets, not your outlets. And also, when it comes to being bipolar, which is a whole separate thing, lean into it. I would not ever want to not be bipolar. And I know everyone's like, what? Part of me is being bipolar, and I love me. And no matter how your brains work, I tried the 9 to 5 I'm a business owner. And one thing I tried for y'all, I can't believe how long I tried it. I'm mad at myself about it. I'm like, okay, Tabitha, wake up at 9, do your emails, which is admin's hell on earth for all of us, which is something that's been validating for all of you to tell me. So thank you. But like 9 to 11, do admin. Then from 1 to 4, see consults. That I was trying to put myself in this 9 to 5, which I've literally never worked a 9 to 5 ever. But my brain was like, Tabitha, this is how you do it. Buy a planner. Yes, I'm obsessed with planners. I'm still going to keep buying them and not using any of them. Don't care. Still going to buy them. Don't care. If you want recommendations of my favorite ones, I've literally been through all of them. But then it took me way too long to realize that. But now I'm like, girl, you get everything done and just you have your way, and it's not structured as far as it's structured to me. Yeah. But it's not structured. But to be fair, even there's so much research to support that the 9 to 5 structure isn't conducive to production.
I can't wait till the new 40 hours is 36 they keep talking about?
Yeah, so I think find your way. Everyone's brains are different. We all learn differently. And the thing is, if you utilizing neurodivergence and identifying that, using that as a label, because that does help with identification, and then you can learn how to advocate for yourself and how to adapt the way you learn. Like, for example, I adapted my schedule to Tabitha and not this 9 to 5 box, and I'm thriving, right? I'm aware that after 3 days of a conference where I'm connecting with everyone, which I love, please ask me questions, please say hi, and lecturing for 14 hours, like, girl, you can't schedule consults the day you come back. My partner was telling me this
Past Ron did that, but Past Ron did also not do that.
No, like, you need a day to just rest, and rest may not be sleep. That's a whole separate thing.
Oh, tell me about it. Like, you and I, right there.
Because my therapist is like respite, and like my brain went to rest is like,
I got to take a nap. I have to sleep. I have to crash on the couch.
And to be fair, sometimes I do nap, but like, I'm not a huge napper. Like, I don't like napping personally. So like, to me, it's like going outside now I might just do a hike because my brain is dead and I don't even want to run. But I'm going to connect with someone like, hey, do you want to grab a drink? Because I do drink alcohol in a healthy amount. So it might be that in moderation. So that was a really long answer because I love those. Isn't it funny? I can keep my lectures though. I'm always on time. Beautiful. See, this is what I'm saying. This is a podcast.
This podcast is about the neurodivergent story. So if it goes 20 minutes or it goes in 2 hours, I could care less. I am not sticking to structure.
Concepts, I am like on point. So that's something. But I also could go on and on. I'll talk to all of you forever.
We can totally talk forever.
I know. But thank you so much for having me on. This is so much fun.
I appreciate you being here. I think we need to have you on again and talk about, I would love a continuation conversation, how we pull fear-free into the human context in the vet clinic.
I share that so much. Like, I use a lot when I lecture. Obviously, I'm mostly focused on animals, but also that includes the humans that care for them. And because a human is a human, a cat's a cat. And it's okay. We're conditioned to resonate more when I share a human story. So I share so many analogies when I lecture. And a lot of it, I think that's why people, like, sometimes people cry after. I'm super fun, I promise.
I'm super fun, but people cry.
But I think it's because I was that person too. And like when I heard Sophia Yin speak a very, very, very long time ago, right? Like you resonate and you're like, this person sees and hears me. And then you're also like, fudge. I was doing, like, I share things I used to do because we aren't set up for success with handling. What we're taught is outdated and not safe. That's a whole separate thing. So like I share things that I was doing when I was doing the best with what I knew. And I'm like, that was 15 years ago and it still makes me cringe. Right. So sometimes people are crying because they're like, have these strong emotions. Also, we're all tired. Like that's a whole separate thing. We're all tired.
We just made an entire season of podcast topics.
You're traveling. When they come and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. And I'm like, first off, and I immediately say, you're amazing. And then I ask them if they want a hug because I always get consent. Because you guys are surprised I'm a hugger. I am
not surprised at all.
I'm cool with it. Like, again, I lean into the stuff I used to not lean into. I'm like, yes. Now, do I get consent? 100%. And to be fair, it's funny because some people are like, I'm not a hugger, but I want to hug you. And I'm like, oh my God, that makes me so happy. But also if you don't want to hug, that's cool too. But I'm always like, first off, you're amazing I'm like, you went to one lecture for an hour and you have all these ideas and you're questioning what you do. I'm like, you're amazing. Like like, can we reinforce the hell out of you for a second? Like, and then we get them to stop crying and then they laugh. So I'm very nice. Let's not end on Tabitha makes people cry when she lectures. Thank you. Context. Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to re-record number 3. Totally kidding. It was such a joy.
I felt safe telling, and that's something
I love that about you.
6 years ago, because I'm so genuine that I never say, because thankfully I think I actually happen to be a nice person, which works out. But I'm so genuine that when I'm speaking, whether it's a webinar or a podcast, I am like out. Like, I'm just like, let's go. I'm talking as me. And I've only re-recorded one other podcast, and I lost my cat a few days before that, and I probably should have rescheduled it. I was just not in a good place. Not that I was like sobbing throughout.
So what I'm hearing is I'm special.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
But I felt comfortable saying, hey, because if you would have said we can't, I would have been like, that's cool. Like, again, I hate when I say 5 minutes after I say it and then I don't. That's normal. So like, but I was like, I would be more comfortable. But 5 years ago, I would have not been comfortable doing that. I would also maybe overthink, like, I don't want to tell you I didn't prep for your podcast at all because your podcast is important. But I just was like, I'm going to talk about me and my viewpoints on blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to have a fun conversation with you. Like that's my prep.
100%. I don't want you to prep. Like, I just want to have candid conversation about.
It's important to me. I don't want you to think that.
We could literally sit here forever and talk. I just really appreciate you. Thank you for being authentically who you are, speaking up for your core needs. I think that's a super important message going home after this. And just thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being you. And I'm so excited that we finally connected. And now he's my friend. Yes, I also make friends with people in media.
And we will see each other at VMX.
I know. I'm so excited to see you in person. It's going to be so fun. We can nerd out let's talk about those labels and like really go into them. Ooh, nerd out.
We just need to do like a side presentation in the hallway. I'm like, this is what we're talking about, guys. Like VMX breaks, we're talking.
Let's go. Sometimes after lectures, like the group of people just come out of things because I'm aware of the next speaker. And we just like, it's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, let's all connect and talk about labels and fun brain things.
Yes.
And how beautiful all of your brains are. And how our brains are stupid sometimes, but also great.
Yes, 100%.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Left Unattended. A huge thank you to my guest, Tabitha. And of course, thank you, Dustin Bays, for editing and making sure this podcast feels as good as it sounds. If today's conversation resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Join my newsletter for weekly insights on neuroinclusive leadership. That's www.syn, which is syn-apt.me/newsletter. And then learn more about coaching with me at coaching.syn-apt.me. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more people find the conversations and reminds us that the world that belonging isn't a luxury. It's a leadership strategy. I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and this has been Left Unattended. Until next time.